So when I was about 10 years old, there was this kid in my class. For some reason, he liked to pick on me. He pulled my ponytail, pushed me, pretend nothing had happened, or he would just say stuff about me that made me uncomfortable. I never talked about this with any of my friends or any of the adults because, you see, he had many friends, and they always joke around. They always play around. So I wasn't even sure if there was anything worthwhile talking about. I was doubting myself for not being able to get along with him. So I started being more quiet and hiding away from him. But still, the sensation of somebody's on me all the time just made me feel very uncomfortable. And till one day, he was saying stuff about me again, and I still don't know what got into me that day. But at that moment, I decided to turn around. I looked at him into the eyes, and I asked him, "What exactly do you not like about me? The stuff that you say and do about me just made me very uncomfortable." He was really surprised. His eyes wide open. He stared at me for a few seconds with silence. And then he said something like, I don't dislike you. So from that moment on, our dynamic changed. We did not become best friends, but we stayed friendly, and he did not bug me anymore till the day we both graduated. I still don't know what his intentions were. Maybe he thought it was fun to see somebody being really nervous because of his action. Maybe he wanted my attention, but then he did not know how. Or maybe he was just simply playing. Regardless what his intentions were, my question helped myself to redirect my own feelings and clarify the situation, and help him to look into his own action. About 15 years ago, I moved to the United States after graduating from college in Taiwan. That's where I was born and raised. So having the goal of becoming a veterinarian in the United States, I spent a lot more time to study English since I was a teenager. So by the time I moved here, my English was good enough for me to understand about 80% of daily conversation, if those conversations were spoken with American news reporter accent and without any and without any slangs or cultural references. So naturally, like daily mistakes and miscommunication happen all the time. You'd be surprised, a lot of common sense that you think they're tightly related to full understanding of the language itself. My first job since I moved was at a local referral center. I was a kennel assistant there. So one of the doctors, she's a dermatologist, and she was my favorite to work with. She's always so kind. She always talked a little bit slower for me, and she took the time to explain everything for me. So one time I was helping her to spin down the serum separator. So she told me to take out the serum after I was done. She needed that sample. Actually, it's from a cat who was just euthanized for her paper, for her study. So after I spun down the tube, I dumped the serum out in the sink. That was my understanding of take something out. After I realized what I did, oh my God, I just wanted to turn back time if possible. I feel so shameful, so sorry, so awful. Oh my God, so many souls. It's just like terrible, terrible, terrible. I could not even look at her into the eyes. I just felt awful. She was sad and disappointed. I mean, that's understandable, but she did not yell at me. She did not write me up. She just calmly reiterated what exactly she wanted me to do, and that's that. And she did not treat me any differently afterwards. She even wrote me a letter of recommendation when I was applying for vet school. So later on in life, whenever there's a challenge, and at the moment, everything seems to be so dark, so overwhelming, I always try to remember the kindness that she had shared with me. She had shown me in action that a mistake does not define my value, and people who already love me, support me, they will continue doing so regardless. So over this past 15 years, it's kind of like my adulting 101. So I moved away from home. I put myself under a new environment, new culture, new language, new situation. I had to redefine what common sense all mean to me and what they are exactly. Of course, I went through heartbreaks. Of course, I made so many mistakes. And I moved from San Diego to New York to Boston to Madison, and then back to LA, California. And I finally got into vet school the third time I tried, and I almost fell out of vet school the first semester. And I finished a small animal internship thinking to be an internal medicine specialist, and I ended up deciding that being a GP, relief GP, and acupuncturist suit me better. And I even founded a company with Dr. Lily Chen here. So throughout all those journeys, there are always people who are loving and supportive, just like the doctor I had mentioned, and they have become my main power to move forward. And of course, there are people who are naysayers. They're always ready to call me out. They judge me regardless. They're always ready to shame me. And the biggest bullies among them all, myself. I'm always ready to call myself out. I'm always ready to shame myself. And then I had just realized that not that long ago. Once I know that, once I realizing that, and I started to ask myself questions using the technique that I learned as a 10-year-old. I asked myself, am I expecting perfection? Is that even possible? Why am I being unfair to myself? Am I only focusing on the bad instead of the good? And those questions always help me to center and redirect my own emotions, even under the situation, everything seems very overwhelming. So this past January, me and my family went to Thailand to visit an elephant sanctuary. So there we learned that traditionally the way they train elephants is to break their spirit. So what they do is that they would separate a baby elephant from his mom. They lock him up, beat him, starve him, abuse him, yell at him, threaten him, to the point that he is so fearful he cannot even recognize his own mom. From that point on, he only obeys his trainers out of fear. That baby elephant, even once he becomes an adult with tremendous power, tremendous energy, he can easily destroy a village. He will not go anywhere. You can easily confine him just one thin slice of chain tying on his foot. So to me, social expectations, materialism, false accusation, they're all representing that slice chain tying on the foot of supposedly being very strong animal, the elephant, you and I, us. We are the elephant. We're creating scary tales in our head, keeping ourselves in the dark. And the love and support from our families and our friends are just like the brightest beam of light shining directly on that chain, telling us how insignificant and fragile that chain is, as long as we decide to step forward with the unstoppable force. So, everybody, are you ready to free the elephants? Thank you.